Now, let's move on to talk about what the stages really represent. There's a couple of different ways of looking at it. First, each color stage represents density of ego. So red has a more dense ego than blue, than orange, than green, than yellow, than turquoise. So that's an expanding of what you're identifying with. And so basically, if you think of the void or formlessness, the I am, that true sense of I amness that you are, that enlightened self, that sense of formlessness within you is identifying with more and more form. So first it starts with just your physical body, then it expands beyond that to your tribe and to your nation, then beyond that to your maybe to your entire race and part of the world, then beyond that to the entire human species, and beyond that to include all animals and then everything in the entire cosmos, and then ultimately at the very end you identify literally with everything in the universe. Because generally that's what consciousness is doing. Spiral dynamics is not just a human thing. Really, it's just one particular case or example of evolution as a whole. And what the evolution of the universe is doing as a whole is it's developing more complexity. And it's expanding its sense of identification and consciousness. You can see it, for example, with the evolution of life, starting from little microbes all the way up to mammals and chimps and then humans, and then whatever comes after that, maybe artificial intelligence or something like that. The other way you can look at what these stages represent is they represent levels of cognitive development. And what that means is that it's how you think, it's how your mind works. Every color of stage represents a more sophisticated, nuanced, and complex way of thinking about reality and understanding reality. A way of thinking which builds on top of older ways of thinking. So it's sort of like you have the reptilian brain, then you have the evolution of the mammalian brain, which sits on top of the reptilian brain. And then in humans, you have an additional layer, which is the frontal cortex, which sits on top of the mammalian brain. And it doesn't stop there. There's more levels to it, right? Then it's how you're using your neocortex. It's the software that's running it. And so it's sort of like you're upgrading your software from 1.0 to 2.0 to 3.0 and so on. And your cognitive development really determines your value system, which is what these stages represent, is different values, and also the needs that you have, the quality of the needs that you're satisfying. So the reptilian brain, it's only concerned with the most basic needs. Maslow's hierarchy of needs of like sex and food and survival. But then once you've satisfied those, then you're moving beyond that, and now your values include stuff that's beyond just basic necessities of survival, and now includes stuff like love and art and self-actualization needs, and then even self-transcendence needs and so forth. And then the third way of thinking of what these stages represent, and this here is critical. This is a huge insight. So pay attention. Each stage represents the ability to take on more perspective. More perspective. This is one of the keys to understanding how to climb the spiral quickly. It's about taking on more points of view beyond your limited personal egoic perspective, which is sort of where you start life with. I talk a lot about perspective, and I try to introduce you to lots of different kinds of perspectives. And this is just something that's been a strength of mine for my entire life. I've always been good at this. And that's one of the things that I bring with actualize.org is that I can bring you to higher perspectives. I'm really good at that. And I didn't realize this until recently that that's what spiral dynamics is about. It's about being able to explore new perspectives and being open-minded to new perspectives. And so the thing that keeps people stuck at their level and not evolving is that they get stuck in one perspective or another.